They slid a $14,000 fine under my door like it was junk mail. Some people bring bread, these people bring litigation. I laughed at first, then I read the signature and my laugh died slow like a car rolling off a cliff. If you're wondering whether moving to the mountains would save you from petty bureaucrats, let me save you some time, it won't. I bought that 40-acre plot because I wanted my life to quiet down real quiet. After 20 years of living in a place where neighbors watched your every delivery and drones buzzed your backyard like annoying mosquitoes. I wanted trees. I could hear breathing at night. I wanted to listen to my own thoughts without an HOA newsletter telling me my mailbox color was offensive. For 2 days I did nothing but breathe, unpack a box, make coffee that tasted like victory, and expect nothing more exciting than Then the envelope appeared. Thick, unmarked, slid under my threshold with the casual cruelty of bad news. Green Hollow Preserve Homeowners Association, it said at the top in a font that tried hard to be official. 3 violations, a total fine of $14,000, 48 hours to pay or they'd escalate. Signed, Karen Jennis, President. For about 5 seconds, I tested the laws of physics by expecting a punchline. There wasn't one. I started with the sensible moves, county records, satellite maps, the boring human stuff that proves whether you're in someone's jurisdiction or not. The land was clearly outside their development, separated by a ragged creek and a row of tan-roofed houses that marched like an irrelevant army downhill. I found their website, their logo, their polished sentences about community standards. All of it ended a good half-mile away from my cabin. Still, the notice looked deliberate, so I called. A robotic message told me their offices were closed. No human, no extension. I left a voicemail that started neutral and ended somewhere between curiosity and righteous anger. I emailed my attorney in Denver, subject line, "You're not going to believe this." Then I taped the notice to my fridge and mounted a cheap porch camera. If anyone tried to play games with my land, I wanted it on film. That night I wandered down the driveway and found tire tracks in the dust. 2 sets wide like an SUV's, neat and deliberate. Whoever had walked the paper to my door had come here on purpose. My nearest neighbor was nearly a mile away. That didn't feel like a mistake. That felt like an opening salvo. The next morning I went to the county recorder's office with a heart that felt like someone had dropped a cinder block into it. The clerk clicked, frowned, and said, "That's odd." There, glowing on the screen, my parcel was now shaded in green, part of Green Hollow Preserve's boundary filed 4 days earlier. A notarized form signed by me. Consent of property owner stamped by a notary I didn't recognize. I watched my quiet life shift into a different kind of noise. We pulled visitor logs and the footage showed a woman late 40s, bleached hair, baseball cap, dropping off an envelope and leaving. No ID, no sign-in. Her name on the recorded paperwork matched the signature on my notice, Karen J. She'd filed a boundary expansion request in person, and somehow the county had accepted it. The packet she left had a signature that looked like mine, and a notary stamp belonging to a man who, according to an obituary, had been dead for 2 years. "Someone forged your name," the clerk said, and then looked at me like she wanted to throw up. I wanted to throw something harder. At home, I walked my property, found a fresh metal stake with an HOA tag zip-tied to it. Someone had physically marked my line. This wasn't a typing error. It was strategy. Quiet, bureaucratic, predatory strategy. Then the drone appeared, and with it, the level of my disbelief dropped into something sharper. It hovered above my roof early one morning, precise and experimental, a little quadcopter like a vulture. I recorded it. 10 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up and Karen stepped out, the same woman in the cap, only now with sunglasses that said, "I make rules and then I enforce them." She pronounced that a drone survey found violations, unapproved structures, visible waste, operation of heavy equipment. "You're trespassing," I said to her face phone recording. She smiled a small, dangerous smile and talked about emergency amendments and obedience. She moved like someone who believed paperwork was a weapon and people who disagreed were just collateral. I filed complaints, called deputies, and yes, I called my attorney again. Carla Moreno, a litigator who smelled like coffee and consequences, didn't waste breath. "This is a pattern," she said. Within a day, she'd pulled old cases. Turns out Green Hollow had a history of creative enforcement. Their board members' names showed up in past complaints, fines slapped on homes clearly outside their jurisdiction, neighbors harassed elderly homeowners, bullied into paying fees they didn't owe. We were not the first quiet target. Carla's team dug up the notary dead, the obituary said. They traced IP addresses for the county filing. One led back to a device registered to the HOA vice president. They found a pattern of filings with forged notary stamps and phony consent forms. Fraud basically dressed up in legalese. Strike 1 dead notary, strike 2 fake office addresses, strike 3 a string of targeted properties and victims. I tried to be practical. Cameras, motion lights, hidden trail cams. I backed up footage to multiple clouds, gave copies to the sheriff, and slapped no trespassing signs along the lower fence. But stacks of paperwork only stop some people. Others escalate. One night, someone walked onto my property and tried to burn a pile of firewood next to the workshop. The camera that would have caught them had been ripped off a tree the day before. They wanted me blind. When they started setting fires, something inside me changed. Fear got sharpened into anger. This wasn't about a fine anymore. It was about intimidation. They were trying to make me vanish. I refused to vanish. We started pushing back legally and loudly. Carla filed for an injunction. The county investigator opened a criminal inquiry. We subpoenaed HOA records and found a storage unit with boxes full of forged maps and notes. One of the men they'd used for enforcement, someone who'd collected fines and handled enforcement for them, was caught after a messy night on my property, tripping, bleeding, and carrying a phone full of messages. He flipped in, questioning like a switchblade, naming names, forwarding voice memos, pointing to who ordered what. The HOA's playbook had a brutality to it that I didn't expect from suburban people with clipboard complexes. They plotted arson, forged public records, and used drones like hobbyist paparazzi to justify illegal searches. They used fear to erase people's right to quiet ownership. But their plan had 2 big flaws. They assumed I'd go quietly, and they underestimated the mess that happens when you push someone who still remembers how to make a phone call and keep receipts. We took them to court. At the preliminary hearing, Carla laid out the evidence like a surgeon's tray: forged notary stamps, camera feeds, the burned drone casing I found in a ditch, phone logs linking orders to Karen and the vice president. The judge didn't have to squint. The story matched itself. The restraining order they tried to slap on me was denied. The court ordered an immediate criminal investigation. That investigation unearthed more than I expected. The DA's office seized storage units, raided homes, and found a pattern across 5 target properties. In every case, someone had tried to quietly expand the HOA's perimeter on paper, then use fines and threats to extract money or coerce sale. In one case, an elderly woman had been paying phantom fines for years and thought the fees were legit. In another, they tried to make a vacant, foreclosed house look code violated so they'd have claim to it. It was organized, predatory, and ugly. When the trial came, the local press showed up. I'd like to say I was calm, but I'm honest with you, I was a wreck. Carla sat by me like a steady anchor, and when she spoke, the courtroom leaned in. The defendant, Karen, looked small in person, like the suit had swallowed her. The prosecution played audio of someone on a phone arranging arson. They showed the GPS logs for the drone. They showed the dead man's notary seal stamped on a fake consent form. The jury didn't need long. Verdict: guilty. Sentences were heavier than I expected. Perhaps the judge wanted a message to others with similar ideas. Assets were frozen. I won a civil judgment that covered damages and legal fees and maybe taught a lesson or two. When it was over, my house was still standing. My cameras were back up with better backups. The scars were mostly paperwork, court orders, sealed files, a stack of clippings. I walked my land at dusk and listened. The silence felt different, earned. I learned things the hard way. People who hold little power sometimes get drunk on it. They forge documents. They weaponize boredom. They rationalize cruelty with phrases like community standards. The law can be slow, but it exists for a reason to be used. Fight where you can document everything, and don't assume that bureaucracy always acts in good faith. And maybe most of all, don't let the people who try to erase you win by default. So here's the question I want you to think about, and tell me in the comments or wherever you keep your honest takes: when someone uses paperwork as a weapon, is it enough to outfight them in court, or should communities build faster safety nets? So this kind of thing never takes root. Have you ever seen a neighbor or neighborhood turn predatory like that? Tell me what happened and what you'd do differently. If nothing else, remember this paper can look official, glossy, seal neat typeface, all the things that whisper authority, but authority is only real when it's backed by honesty. I fought for my land until the people who thought they could take it learned a sharper lesson: don't mess with someone's home and expect them not to fight back.